Hello, I'm David Moskowitz with PropThink, and we're here with the CEO of Spectrum Pharmaceuticals, Raj Shrotriya. Dr. Shrotriya, thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
So Spectrum has been on a tremendous ride. Under $4 in 2009 and reaching over $17.50 this summer. Can you talk about the success of Spectrum, how such success was driven?
Well, at Spectrum Pharmaceuticals, we take great pride in helping cancer patients and also help investors get return on their investment, and at the same time make sure that employees are making a difference. That has been our philosophy since we started the company 10 years ago, and this is just reflection of our continuing to deliver value. If you look at from 2010 to today, we now have 3 drugs on the market, 3 proprietary anti-cancer drugs helping cancer patients. And our revenue has grown from $74 million in 2010 to $193 million in 2011. And this year we expect our pro forma revenue to be over $300 million. So I think company has been performing. We are very happy. Our company has been judged as one of the best places to work in 2005 and 2009 and again in 2012. And is also one of the fastest growing company in the technology sector as reported by Deloitte and other companies. So we are very proud of the company that we have built.
Fusilev is your lead product. It's annualizing now at over $220 million. Do you see this product continuing to grow at this kind of a clip?
Yes, indeed. So Fusilev is now approved for the treatment of colorectal cancer, metastatic advanced colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is the second biggest diagnosed cancer for men and women in the United States. There are more than 150,000 patients that are diagnosed with this disease. And it's the third leading cause of death of cancer. More than 50,000 patients die each year. So we believe that there is an unmet medical need, and Fusilev indeed, we believe, will continue to grow. Currently, we have only about 29% market share. And we expect the sales to decline slowly. I mean, in terms of growth will be declined. Growth will not be as rapid as we have seen in last year and a half. However, we expect overall revenue to keep growing.
So you expect it to continue to grow, but not quite at the same rate because the base of sales is much higher. Another point of controversy is that generic leucovorin, which is not the same as Fusilev, could come back on the market. There's been a disruption in supply. And that, some believe, is going to significantly impact the launch ramp or the ramp of Fusilev. Can you talk a little bit about that and what your feelings are about Fusilev relative to generic leucovorin coming back to the market?
Indeed. So let's talk first about, be very clear. The generic leucovorin is not generic of Fusilev. Fusilev is a different drug approved under a new drug application by the FDA for 2 indications. First in 2008 for a small orphan indication called osteogenic sarcoma and for treating overdosage of methotrexate poisoning or methotrexate or its analogs, poisoning or overdose toxicity. In 2011, that's last year, in April, we got approval from the FDA for treatment of colorectal cancer. So let's all be clear that this is a drug by its own right. If you look at generic drug, which is a mixture of dextroform and a levoform, is a 50-50 mixture. It was approved by the FDA in 1953. That's about 60 years ago. At that time, the rules were different. So keep in mind that some people are just confused that generic leucovorin is not generic of Fusilev, number 1. Number 2, Fusilev recently approved by the FDA. It has its own J code. And what J code means, that FDA and the government, CMS, understand that this is a new drug based on its own data package has been approved for the treatment of colorectal cancer, and companies can price it accordingly. So there is a differential pricing between generic leucovorin and Fusilev. And we were very excited and we are very pleased with this. Secondly, if you think why there is a shortage of generic drug on and off, there are generic manufacturers who compete with each other trying to sell a penny cheaper than the next guy, number one. Number two, it's like a commodity. They don't support the drug. They don't do any clinical trials. They don't have a detailed sales force. Many companies bundle leucovorin with other drugs. In contrast, at FuseLab, we have a 40 people dedicated sales force promoting FuseLab to colorectal cancer doctors. And we have a whole army of people supporting it. We have a brand manager, we have reimbursement team. So we are doing new clinical trials. Number one, we are doing trials now with the newly acquired drug Folotyn. Folotyn causes mucositis, and we believe that FuseLab can reduce mucositis. So we have new clinical trials undergoing. We also have another trial with FuseLab in acute lymphocytic leukemia in children. So we are supporting the brand that there is no way generic companies can support. And again, once again, to say that generic leucovorin is a different drug than FuseLab.
Got it. Let's zero in on that J code. That seems really interesting. So you're saying that FuseLab has a unique J code, which is a reimbursement code that specifically reimburses and gets physicians their money back on FuseLab. How important is that?
It's very important. If you look at it, in oncology practice, doctors actually want to make sure that they prescribe a drug that has unique properties, that is safe and effective, and the FDA approval gives them that satisfaction. J-code allows the drug companies to market their drugs under the permission of the CMS, the government, at a certain premium price. And also, companies are at liberty to increase prices. We can raise prices under J-code between 2% and 6%, and we usually do what's called pulse pricing. Doctors and their practices will make money by prescribing drugs like FuseLab, that are proprietary drugs, because they can charge from the reimbursement agencies average sales price, what's called ASP, plus 6%. So if we sell a vial for $100, doctors can make $6 on a vial. If a generic drug sells for $10, they can still make 6%. That's like 60 cents. And obviously, sometimes the cost of administering these drugs is much higher than the reimbursement they get paid. So J-code is very important, especially in the field of oncology.
You mentioned that you have the ability to raise price under a J-code. And there's been some talk out there that you've been cutting price, in fact, to gain market share in advance of generic leucovorin coming back to the market. What can you say about that?
So I will tell you very emphatically that Spectrum has neither reduced prices of FuseLab nor have given huge discounts to woo doctors to prescribe FuseLab. In fact, we have increased prices. In first quarter, we raised price of 2%. And in second quarter, we increased price again, a pulse price between 2 and 6%. And in third quarter, the average sale price is higher than it was in previous quarters. And in fact, we expect prices in Q4 to be even higher.
And that's because the average sales price is calculated based on prior month's pricing.
Absolutely. That's a very important point. Had we given any discounts, our average sale price in Q3 and Q4 would have been lower.
And one more question on the J-code. Is that something that's easy to get? Does every company just get a unique J-code for their product?
No. In fact, J-code is very important and very difficult to get. There's a team of experts in the government who look at your data package, in fact, who meet in a panel group. Sometimes they even interview companies and they ask how you have developed this drug, how much money you have spent, and you're allowed to explain to the CMS. But there is a panel of experts who sit and debate, and it takes a long and tedious process before they grant you a J-code. Granting of a J-code is a huge thing for any drug company.
What does it demonstrate when you get a unique J-code? Does that speak to how different your product is from other products on the market?
Absolutely. J-code shows to everybody that FuseLab is a unique product, and therefore it has been allowed by the government to be priced uniquely.
In addition to FuseLab, you have Zevalin and a few other products in the pipeline. You've just merged with Allos Therapeutics. That's a lot of moving parts. What should investors focus on as we go forward through the end of the year and into 2013 at Spectrum?
I think investors should focus on the big picture. Spectrum is a company that is very serious in building an oncology franchise. We want to have more and more drugs on the market helping cancer patients. We want to have a bigger pie. We want our investors to make money. I'm very grateful to our investors who have invested money at a time when our company didn't have any chance of success, so surviving 10 years ago. And also, every single employee in the company is passionate and making a difference. I interview every single employee who joins the company, whether there is a janitor or an administrative assistant or a salesperson. And I look into their eyes and look for passion and excitement and commitment. And I tell you, I'm very proud that we have now a little over 200 employees after the acquisition of Allos. And every single employee is very committed. And we are here to make sure that every employee enjoys making a difference, investor gets return on their investment, and patients are happy with what we do here.
Thank you for that, Raj. So specifically, what should investors focus on in terms of driving financial success of the company? What are the things that you would say to investors to key in on?
So I think investors should focus on two things. Number one, that Spectrum delivers value while cutting expenses. If you look at we are a small company and we have earnings per share. Last year we returned $72 million in cool profit. And just last month alone, we bought our own shares. We bought more than 1 million shares for nearly $12 million. To me, that is investing in ourselves. So we are very proud of saying that our investors should be happy that this company invests in our own success. And also, our board last time had a discussion, should we buy back our own shares or give a dividend? I personally feel that there will be a time in not too distant future when Spectrum would be considering giving a dividend to its shareholders.
You've guided for revenue this year, finishing the year at $300 million. Have you given any guidance for 2013 and what we can expect, especially given that you've now merged with Allos?
Not yet, because remember, I have been on a business trip. I was in Boston when we announced the acquisition of Allos on Friday at about 5 o'clock. I made sure that between 5 and 6 o'clock, most of the people at Allos were terminated, because we want to make sure that we don't carry on any expense in our books that we can get rid of. And we are very proud to say that we have done that. Going forward, I believe that the revenue of $300 million is a back of the envelope revenue calculation that I have done. It's a pro forma revenue. I have not provided any guidance, and maybe in next quarterly, at the time of our Q or K release, we might be able to give further guidance.
So you mentioned that when you completed the merger of Allos and Spectrum, some of the costs were reduced by employee terminations. Can you talk specifically about where the potential overlaps exist between companies like Spectrum and Allos, and how costs can be reduced between the two companies?
So we believe that we will have benefit or accretiveness of at least $40 to $50 million a year going forward. This won't happen in first quarter or second quarter, but eventually we expect the benefit of about $40 to $50 million. And then let me explain how.
Meaning on the cost side,
yes,
there's going to be $40 to $50 million less when you merge the two companies together.
Right. And also I might add that when you run two public companies, you have expenses, fixed expenses for your auditors, for your corporate lawyers. You have an executive management team with CFO, with head of business development, CEO, president of the company, head of various operations. We don't have to duplicate. So in fact, we have allowed most of the senior people to leave on day one. So therefore, lot of synergies will come not only from cutting expenses by reducing the headcount, but also by combining the sales force. The sales force at Allos was selling only one drug, Fullerton. We have two drugs in our bag, Zavalin and Fusilev. When the Fullerton sales force or Aloe sales force joins the Spectrum, now they will be selling 3 drugs. They'll have 3 drugs in their bag: Fullerton, Zevalin, and Fuselev. So there'll be synergies far beyond just the reduction in payroll and benefits.
So in addition to cost cutting, you expect there to be outsized sales growth because of the combination of the 2 sales forces.
Yes, indeed.
And being able to reach more physicians and centers, infusion centers.
So we will have a broader footprint in the marketplace. And when our salespeople call on a hematologist, oncologist, they will be able to offer not 1 but 2 drugs: T-cell drug and a B-cell lymphoma drug. So we are quite excited about the fact that even our sales team will enjoy more interaction with the doctors, as they will be able to offer more choices for their patients.
I want to finish up with some financial questions, but before we get to that, we haven't talked a little about the pipeline. So can you just give us 1 or 2 of your most exciting assets that you're developing and that investors should keep their eye on?
We have a huge pipeline, and the reason for that is we don't have any drug discovery in the company. We have very aggressive business development strategy, and we acquire drugs from other drug companies, from universities, from National Cancer Institute, and we have built a waterfront property. We have about 10 oncology drugs in development. None of these drugs are in test tube or in mice. All these drugs are in clinical trials. And I'm very proud to say that I would say about 4 drugs are in late stage of clinical testing. There is a drug called belinostat that we hope to file an NDA within the next 6 to 9 months. There is a second drug for bladder cancer that we have applied to the FDA. We are looking to hear what the FDA has to say about the data. We have a 1,600 patients study completed in bladder cancer. Third drug is a prostate cancer drug that is in phase 2B trials. Fourth drug is a drug for brain tumor, glioblastoma multiforme or GBM, that's also in late phase 2 trials. In addition to this, we have many other drugs that are in phase 2 trials, and I'm very excited that all we need is a 1 winner, and I expect there are several potential winners in our pipeline.
Sounds like a lot of shots on goal. So you also recently announced a $100 million stock buyback program, and you mentioned earlier that you've bought $12 million of the stock back. It seems like you're going to be pretty aggressive on that program. So question 1 is, what does the balance sheet look like post the Allos merger? And 2, how aggressive do you intend to continue to be on the stock buyback program?
So let me start by saying that we ended our last quarter, we ended our second quarter with over $270 million in cash, investments, and receivables. And at that time, Allos had over $80 million. When we closed this transaction, we used a lot of Allos's money to pay for the buyback of Allos's shares and to consume the transaction. I don't have the final numbers as to how the numbers look like. I would have by the end of the quarter. However, we believe that this whole transaction will be accretive, number 1. And number 2, the buyback program of $100 million was authorized by the board because I believe giving back to shareholders. We are a profitable company. We had earnings per share last year and this year in first quarter and second quarter. So we are bringing cash into the company. And our board and I strongly believe that we should return some of the money that we are taking as a profit back to the investors. There are 2 ways of doing it. One is either we buy back our stock, invest in ourselves, or we give a dividend. Right now we have bought back, it's an important milestone that we bought back 1 million shares, spent about $12 million. And the second time we might consider giving a dividend. There's no reason for us to continue to keep buying unless we believe that we can pick up our own shares at a deep discounted prices, and that's what the price is today.
Just rounding off, what components of your business do you think are most misunderstood out there, and what would you like to highlight to investors?
I think people should focus on a big picture. This company is bringing novel drugs through the FDA process to help more cancer patients. This company always under-promises and over-delivers, and always keeps in mind patients, investors, and its own employees. If people keep the big picture in mind, they will see that this company has been growing since 2002 when I became the CEO. We have a track record of growth, consistent growth over the past 10 years. And I think then these questions about one quarter or one drug would stop coming.
And where does Spectrum go longer term? What is this long-term strategic plan for the company?
10 years ago, I said in about 10 years' time, we expect our market cap to be $1 billion, when actually our market cap was about $1.3 million. We achieved that. On 16th of July, before completing our 10 years, our market cap did reach $1 billion. We have set a new goal that with the next 3 years, we expect our market cap to grow to $5 billion. So we are very excited about the goals we have set, and we expect to accomplish them.
So that's a very clear goal for investors, and we look forward to your progress and ability to meet that goal. One final question. You recently brought in a new COO. Looks like a very high caliber guy, and that's unusual following a merger where some of the senior people have been let go. Tell us about this new hire and what he brings to the table.
At Spectrum, we take great pride in our strategic thinking and a long-term vision. The person we have hired, Ken Keller, comes to us from Amgen, where he was general manager of a division where he was responsible for over 500 employees and over $3 billion P&L. What I liked about Ken was the fact that he was able to grow business without increasing expenses, while cutting expenses. And that's music to our ear, because at Spectrum, that's what we take great pride in. Ken Keller has also expertise in not only commercial area. I mean, he started at Amgen as a sales representative 21 years ago. I'm very proud to see somebody who has made a progress from a sales rep to general manager responsible for a big division. Ken, in addition, spent 2 years as managing director for Amgen's European division and was based in UK and Ireland. So therefore, Ken is a strategic addition to the company as part of our succession plan, as someone who will help grow the 3 drugs that we have on the market, and we expect to keep bringing drug on the market every year or every other year. So his appointment to the company is very timely and very necessary. We didn't think that anybody at Allos would have filled that role. We had been looking for Ken for filling this position for over a year. It had nothing to do with the acquisition of Allos.
And this is a new position at the company?
This is a new position that we have created, yes.
Very good. Well, that's impressive. Well, Dr. Shrotriya, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it, and much continued success.
David, thank you. It's a pleasure talking to you.